So we've just read the first part of Jesus' first sermon, the Beatitudes. Now, if you've ever heard the title Beatitude and wondered where that word came from, it's just the Latin word for blessedness. It's talking about the state of blessedness. That's what the Beatitudes, the blessedness statements are. Now, I was researching this, and I wanted to really understand what Jesus meant when he said, blessed are. And so I was looking at the original language, and I was studying it in light of how it was used outside of the Bible in classical Greek literature. The Greek word is makarios, and it was a word that was used very frequently by people like Socrates, by Homer, and other Greek philosophers. And almost every single time the word makarios was used, it was referring to something that only the gods could attain. Makarios referred to the transcendent state of happiness that was not affected by circumstances. In other words, it was a happiness that wasn't affected by work, wasn't affected by cares of the world, wasn't even affected by death. And the reason why it was reserved for the gods, because only the gods could stand above all these things. They were the only ones not affected by death or cares of the world or labor. So they were the only ones who could achieve makarios in Greek thought. And then here comes Jesus onto the scene. He says, no. It's not the gods, it's every person who lives according to my way. They can achieve this transcendent state of happiness, the state of blessedness, makarios. So if you've ever wanted to achieve a transcendent state of happiness, you should probably lean into what Jesus has to say. But let me go ahead and warn you, it doesn't make sense. I don't know if you ever read the Beatitudes and really thought through what he's saying, but it is almost unintelligible what he's saying. He says, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are the meek, blessed are the hungry and thirsty, blessed are the merciful, blessed are the pure in heart, blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are those who are persecuted. The transcendent state of happiness through suffering, pain, sadness, meekness, and humility. You got to remember, there was an original audience who was hearing this for the first time, and they're hearing Jesus go and say, what? You mean I can achieve a transcendent state of happiness by doing all the things that are supposed to make me not happy? Because think about it, each one of these is completely contrary to happiness. Very first one, blessed are the poor in spirit. I'm going to talk more about that at the end, this idea of being broken and humble. Look, the world says if you want to be happy, you got to be self-confident. You got to walk out in the world and you got to own it. You got to take charge of this thing around you. And Jesus said, no. True happiness comes from being lowly. Next one, blessed are those who mourn. That's about as opposite as it comes. Isn't sadness like the opposite of happiness? The world will tell you if you want to be happy, you better change your circumstances. If you don't like your circumstances, do something about them because you're not going to be happy till your circumstances are good. And Jesus says, no. Blessed are you when things are broken and you're sad. We were just watching last night the movie Inside Out, and there's joy and sadness and that realization that at some point sadness has got to take charge. Like this is what Jesus is saying. You got to let sadness take charge sometimes. You'll never find happiness. It didn't make any sense to the people who were hearing it the first time. Verse 3, blessed are the meek. Meek means not aggressive. Well, what does the world say? The world says, be aggressive, be aggressive. This is what we chant at basketball games and stuff like that. If you want to get ahead, you're going to have to be aggressive. Ain't no one going to offer you life on a silver platter. You got to go work for it. You got to be aggressive. You got to take charge. And Jesus says, no. If you want to be happy, you got to be meek. You pull away from aggression. Didn't make sense. He goes on, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness because they will be satisfied. The world says if you want to be happy, you're going to have to be satisfied right now. You're going to have to get what you want right now because you will never be happy until you're satisfied. And Jesus says the exact opposite. He says if you want to be happy, you got to stay hungry and stay thirsty for what's right. One day you're going to be satisfied, but you'll never be happy if you're trying to be satisfied right now. Stay hungry and thirsty. Didn't make any sense. Next one, blessed are the merciful. Let me tell you what the world says. The world has adopted a Cobra Kai ethic. You remember Karate Kid, those of you who've seen it? Strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir. That dojo, you're supposed to say it over and over, strike first, strike. You got this guy drilling in, and mercy's for the weak. Well, this is what we're taught. Look, people just take advantage of you. You can't let them take advantage. You got to stand up for yourself. And what does Jesus say? He says, be so filled with mercy that you keep on forgiving people no matter what they do to you. Let them have the upper hand. It didn't make any sense. Keeps going. Blessed are the pure in heart. Let me tell you what the world teaches you. Blessed are those who indulge in pleasure. You want to be happy? Then go ahead and find what pleases you and give in to that. If it's a substance, if it's a relationship, if it's an addiction, whatever, as long as it pleases you, that's what you need to do. And Jesus says, no, it'll break you. Blessed are the pure, those who stay away from those harmful pleasures of the world. That's where transcendent happiness comes from. Then he says, blessed are the peacemakers. Let me go ahead and tell you what the world says. Blessed are the rabble-rousers. Blessed are the controversial. You want to know who has the most followers on Twitter? The ones who raise the most controversy. You want to know which news outlets have the most viewers? They're the ones who tell the most controversial stories. This is why news don't tell good, kind, wholesome stories, because they don't sell. Nobody wants to hear them. You want to get notoriety and attention? You got to stir up some controversy. And what does Jesus say? Now, if you want to find blessedness, then you diffuse controversy. You make peace. Blessed are the peacemakers. It didn't make sense. And then he finishes with the craziest one. Blessed are the persecuted. The world says, blessed are those who can defend themselves. Blessed are those who stand up for themselves and everybody else around them. And Jesus said, no, blessed are those when you are reviled, when you are uttered, spoken evil against, and when you are persecuted for my name's sake. It just doesn't make sense. How could that be the source of blessing? And if you were to keep on going through the Sermon on the Mount and keep reading all of the stories, it's just even crazier. The world says, hey, listen, man, you're all good, just don't get caught. Jesus says, it doesn't matter just what you do, it even matters what you think. If you really want to follow my ways, even how you think matters. The world says, watch your back. Jesus says, give the shirt off your back to somebody else. World says, get all you can. Jesus says, give all you can. The world says, listen, man, when somebody messes with you, you got to get even. And Jesus says, when somebody mistreats you, you got to give grace. Over and over and over. Things that are utterly contradictory to what we would think would be right and wise and masterful. A whole sermon where Jesus just slaps the people in the face saying, you're all wrong in the way you view the world. And I was sitting there trying to internalize this. How do I share this where it doesn't just fly over your heads? Like, how is this ethic so different? And how do we understand it? And the place I got to is a realization that what Jesus is trying to teach us is that the transcendent state of happiness comes from what's inside us, not what's outside of us. So that's the difference between the two. The world will teach you if you want to be happy, it's all external to you. Change your circumstances, achieve what you want, get what you want, become who you want to be, then you'll be happy. And Jesus says, no. Has nothing to do with your external, has everything to do with your internal. If you look at what Jesus taught in those Beatitudes, it all had to do with perspective and attitude and faith. Nothing with your outside. And Jesus says, if you want to find the transcendent state of happiness, one that is not the roller coaster of ups and downs of life, it comes by letting me change your inside. See, Jesus is trying to challenge their worldview. He's trying to challenge the way they perceived life because he knew that they were swimming in the wrong direction, and if they didn't change directions, they were going to die. That's why he was so countercultural.